Welcome back to the activation phase. I'm JP, and today I'm joined again by Florian,
Hello,
the Age of Crusade,
mega
I guess,
nerd.
honorary expert, subject matter expert, who will join us. We had a really good reception of the previous episode where we're discussing the various kind of fluff, for a better word, of the chivalry era, what kind of models and that kind of stuff. So this time we are looking at the early period and also the overlap between the Age of Crusades, Age of Chivalry, what you can do, and kind of how to play a Age of Crusades era faction in the Age of Chivalry. A little bit of context here as well. I'm running a mixed Crusades and Chivalry tournament in January. That gives, at the moment, I don't have any news about when it's being released or anything, but it's probably going to be a little bit later than expected. So by January, people should have the book maybe 1 or 2 months max, which isn't a lot of time to build and paint up a warband. Therefore, I'm mixing the two ages, which I think should be okay, but we'll see. But that also means like we can kind of explore other areas and explore other warbands in a slightly different way, with the Age of Chivalry and Crusades mixed. So, having said that, I think we're gonna kind of deep dive into the early period of the Chivalry and the late Crusades. You've made a very extensive list of all the relevant wars going on at that time. Do you want to give people a flavor of how much stuff was happening in that period?
Yeah, like a true historical expert, I went into my library and searched for all the books. Or you simply, like I really did, went to Wikipedia and entered wars from the 1200s till the 1500s. And basically, I picked some of interest out where we definitely have an overlap of the two books concerning the general warbands which we have there. Just as an example, which springs immediately into your face, is basically the whole Baltic Crusades, because this is actually really going through the 13th and 14th century, where nobles basically took like vacations up there to fight the pagans. It called in German it was called like a Preußenfahrten, which means like traveling to Prussia. And you had several famous German, French, Burgundian, and Spanish nobles or knights packing up their stuff, going there for some months, fighting some hairy barbarians, and then going back and praise their bravery. Or other things where we have conflicts where this mix is the Byzantine and Venetian wars between like 1269, I think. Let me 1269, yes, and into the 1300s. Then you had several crusades, basically, where you had Italian and French involvement, where you basically could choose, instead of taking the normal Crusader warbands, you can take then warbands from Age of Chivalry, actually, when you want to really specifically say, my guys are French or my guys are Italian. Then you had several times where Islamic pirates actually raided the coasts of the Mediterranean Sea. So you had Italians being raided and French, where you could basically use some of the Muslimic battle boards for that. And you had actually also even Mongolians sieging some Genoese colonies in the 1300s. This was actually, according to current knowledge, one of the incidents which brought the plague to Europe, where you have Genoese colonies in today's Ukraine, which were sieged by the Mongols. And Also, of course, one really famous battle was the Battle of Nicopolis, which was a battle between Ottomans and basically everyone. When you look at it, it was a late try to basically fight back the encroaching Ottomans, and there was basically the Germans involved, the emperor. Sigismund actually led this thing. There was French involved. You have even some Templars still there, or not Templars. I think it's Hospitallers and some others. And of course, Tannenberg, you can say, yeah. I mean, they are the main players are the Polish and the Teutonic Order, but you still had on the Teutonic Order side also some European nobles, which basically joined the fray, and all
I
of this
guess you
kind of
also had
stuff.
the Lithuanians at the same time as well.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the Lithuanians actually had also Bohemian mercenaries, and if you look at this time, the Bohemians were actually part of the Holy Roman Empire, so you can use there the Holy Roman Empire board for an Age of Chivalry to depict specifically them.
Yeah, sounds good.
So
So
you see,
there's lots of war happening, which is good for
yeah,
a war game.
it seems like Games Workshop have written this background. Everyone fighting everyone all the time.
It's perfect. So I think there's probably two kind of ways we can go. One is if you want to mix the two ages and kind of remain, I guess, historically correct and kind of pick out some factions that maybe were not included in Chivalry, but you still want to use. For example, what some of the comments that we received from our Age of Chivalry video with Julie, the author, was that people were missing maybe some of the more Eastern and Central European factions, like the Polish or the like obviously the Polish and Lithuanians were pretty powerful back then. And the like the Mongol Empire was still in various forms was still quite a force to be reckoned with. Same thing obviously with the Ottomans kind of being missed out. So I think this gives you a really good reason to like mix those two ages without feeling out of place, and also that way you can kind of, if you do it correctly, or if you find a few loopholes, you can probably play your Crusades army deep into the Age of Chivalry as well, which is great, without kind of breaking the like the vibe of the time period. So let's maybe start with some. We can classify some of the factions as being like a really easy porting over to Chivalry from Crusades. I would say probably Mongolians is number one. Very similar
Yes,
from that
exactly.
period.
Exactly. The Mongolians were, as we just said, they were still active really until the 1300s, and until the 1400s. The Mongolian Empire still existed and battled also, for example, the Saracens, or not Saracens during this time, Ottoman, and also later on you have Timur, and in the 1400s you have Timur the Lame, which actually is not Mongolian. He fought the Mongolians and basically defeated them, but the armies were quite similar. So you could also depict them with the Mongols quite well. This would be an example for the Mongols. For another obvious one, in my opinion, would be, I know it's not a perfect match, and probably Hamza will hate me for that, but the Ottomans, I think, are a good place for using the Saracen board, as the style of war is quite similar when you look at the style of the board. You have a combined army with infantry, with close combat weapons, infantry with bows, and light cavalry with composite bows. A similar setup, the the Ottomans also have. I would not use the same figures. I would dedicatedly look for Ottoman figures, especially the Janitschars were quite unique. And I know Hamza might be criticizing that I say they are the same from a play style. I apologize, but this is the closest you can get, I think, and it serves a purpose. Yeah. If someone would want to do a homegrown old friend, new enemy, I would also suggest that you use the Ottomans as the Saracens as a basis, and then work from there.
Yeah, also the War Games Atlantic, the digital have basically like heavy Ottoman armored infantry with like they look pretty damn sweet actually.
Yeah, they are nice.
And they claim to cover the 1300 to the 14, I think the fall of Constantinople, that kind of time period.
Yeah.
So that looks pretty sweet, and they even have some like light cavalry and stuff like that. So I think there's enough options. Maybe you have to go a little bit outside of the usual channels.
Yeah, metal there are also a lot of metal around, especially for Janitschars, but you have to be careful there. Sometimes they are more focusing on the second siege of Vienna than they are quite modern. So keep away the musket, guys. Yeah, but the uniform is quite distinct, and you probably can still use also some of the later period.
Yeah, so I think Ottomans are a really big one that's kind of missing and that you can fill in. The next one I think is also a big one that's missing is the Byzantines. And I guess they go through quite a various, I guess it's kind of like the terminal period for them. Do you want to maybe describe like how you would go about modeling them? Because I would guess that the kind of the Age of Crusades like levy spam is not really the way forward for these guys.
I think still the Byzantine battle board and the Byzantine army composition allows you to play the Byzantines really until the end times of them. For them, yeah. What would be interesting is in the figure how you build the figures. Actually, this would be, I think, especially for the late Byzantines, it would be a dream for kit bashers, because when you look at what really in the 1420s or something, really at the end, what the Byzantines actually had as equipment, it was a little bit a weird mix between their traditional stuff. You see still a lot of like this Eastern style lamellar armor, bright colors, and so on. But quite often you still in between see people with like Italian style helmets, these barbutas, or like the real nobles have also like Italian style Milanese harnesses on, but everything with a little Easternized or Byzantinized fashion added to it. So this would be really, really fancy. Yeah. And also you have to see like this is also interesting if you want to pick a war band which should be depicting like people from the Balkans. You see during this time, especially then the 1400s and 1500s, a mix of cultural influences. You have the Italians, the Venetians bringing their influence from gear, equipment, and everything, but also, of course, still the old influence from the Byzantines are in there. So it's always a little bit a mix. The more like the poorer equipped people look more like the old Byzantine style, while the nobles go for the most crazy fashion at the moment, which is then the Italian style. So you can mix really well. I recommend having a look a little bit at some of the Osprey books about the late Byzantine army. It's a wild mix, and you can go really bright with colors and with mixing of miniatures, which would be quite good to see.
Yeah, I guess you can probably get away with kind of like mixing some of the Perry Italian with maybe some other like older ranges as well from the Crusades, maybe something like
Yes.
that too.
Exactly, because the fashion style of the Byzantines stayed really until the end, really distinct Byzantine. Yeah, so you still have this kind of style which you had in the Fireforge minis or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you even have like the specific. Just trying to remember the name. The Balkan cavalry, like
Yeah.
those guys with the funny hats.
The Stradiots.
Yeah, those guys. So maybe that's something you can integrate with like mounted warriors, something like that, just to
Yes. Exactly.
make
It's a
them
good excuse.
very, very distinct.
Yeah, it's a good excuse to use them. You can also use these guys for the Venetian army if you go for Age of Chivalry, because the Venetians used these guys extensively as mercenaries. But of course, the where they came from is the Balkans, and they were also in service of the Byzantines, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just bringing up the Perry Miniatures website, and basically they are where like their hats look like top hats, basically.
Yes, yes. This is so out of touch. These are looking so goofy. I love them.
Yeah, but just like imagine getting just absolutely decimated by these guys, looking pimped out with like their.
Adding
So
insult to injury.
yeah, so I think this would just be amazing to see on the table, and you could totally get away with it and be like, no, they're just
Yeah.
late Byzantines. What
Yeah,
are you talking
exactly.
about? This is very accurate.
Gonna cry, bro. Yeah.
So I think
Yeah. Also,
like
yeah.
no, go ahead.
Also, one faction which might be interesting for a lot of people is the late armies of like Granada or Al-Andalus, like the last Muslim holdouts in Spain. And I thought a little bit about that because Age of Chivalry will have a Spanish army warband. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're completely missing their antagonists in the Muslim
Exactly.
factions.
Exactly. And I thought about actually for these guys actually not using the Moorish board. First of all, the Moorish board is a little bit underwhelming and not fun, in my opinion. But what you could use is actually the Spanish board from the Age of Chivalry, because also there again in the 1400s, also 1300s, 1400s, the Spanish are orienting their army more and more to the French. So more heavier cavalry, more European Central European army style, while the Muslims still stayed with the light cavalry, a lot of javelins and so on. So you could use basically the Spanish board just for depicting them, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that gives you some freedom as well to your Castilians versus your like last holdouts of the Muslim the Emirates. That gives you a pretty good various forces you can use. I'm also interested in maybe having a quick look at the Polish side of things. I think the Polish battle board is underrated and can definitely be used still into the later period. I had a quick look. It looks like they were more focused towards like basically more mounted, like mounted warrior type units, some Hearthguard mounted. And then also, which is I think something that can basically a mercenary option in terms of like the like mounted crossbowmen as well.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's like a basically like think about the Turkopoles, that kind of idea of unit, basically.
Yeah, the mounted crossbows actually, crossbowmen are actually a unit type which was available in whole of Europe during this time. It was basically the reconnaissance and harassing unit which you used during this time, because you didn't had this kind of bowman tradition in Germany, in France, France a little bit, but not so much. And what you had were a lot of people knowing how to use crossbows, and also there are light crossbows which you can use from horseback. And there are a lot of pictures actually where they show that like mounted crossbowmen ride with the knights actually, and giving up first volleys to break up the lines of the enemy so that the knights can charge in. That I hope these guys will be available as mercenary units in Age of Chivalry. Yeah, for the
No,
Polish,
I could not possibly tell, but I think the problem with the Polish, and it would probably need a little bit of adjustments as well, is to figure out what, like they can't take the Turcoples in the Crusades book, which is probably one of the best mercenary options in that book. But I'm sure there's ways of getting around that, and maybe it's an idea if you're running a mixed list or mixed age tournament to be able to just say like everyone make a matrix with the Age of Crusades boards being able to take specific Age of Chivalry mercenaries as well.
Actually, yeah, it's funny because I thought about the same. I basically said if you want to hit the vibe of because the Age of Crusade mercenaries are quite thematic to the Crusades, quite a lot. And I think if you want to depict other conflicts, it would be interesting to see the Age of Chivalry mercenaries, because my gut feeling tells me that these would be the average, or good to depict the average mercenaries which running around all over Europe. And if you would be in a tournament, then maybe creating an own homebrew matrix for the Age of Chivalry guys, what kind of mercenaries they can then take from this Age of Chivalry list is a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess there's nothing like giving like the Muslims like a cannon or something like that would be pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean the Ottomans had cannons. Yeah, so this is absolutely would be interesting to see actually these like kit bashed stuff like this. This would be really great.
Yeah. All right. I think plenty of maybe we just have to wait a little bit longer for the book to really dive into the mercenary options as well.
The hype is on, man, Connie. The hype is on.
But I think that would definitely I think that would really be super fun. When I was building my German warband, I was half tempted to just basically like paint them up like Polish knights as well, and just go full Tannenberg. Because you have warriors with heavy weapons, which is you can take that normally with the Polish anyway. You have lots of mounted, like easy access to mounted warriors as well, just in plastic with the parry sets, which is perfect because they're just incredibly versatile in the Polish board. And then obviously you want a few Hearthguards like with their nice heraldry and like all the little frilly what are they called, like the jupe or something, the
you mean the stuff over the over the armor,
like the tabards, like like the little, I guess it's not quite tabard, but like the little chivalry things anyway.
Yes, over the armor. The clothes over the armor.
Like the frilly sleeves and all that kind of like the pennants and all that kind of stuff like that looks really cool.
And
so
and also there the Polish would be interesting in this period because you still could basically divide the style of armor between like more western side of Poland and more eastern side of Poland. So if you say, okay, I have a unit of Western Polish knights, which have basically the parry miniatures, and then you have a set of Eastern Polish knights where you basically would mix funny helmet shapes and so on from maybe other kits to basically depict more like the Eastern variant. So this is also really an interesting opportunity for kit bashers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the same thing with the Lithuanians. You would basically have probably similar type of things with the Eastern Polish type knights.
Yes, exactly.
think that maybe covers the eastern border. And I think we've covered the southern border with the Ottomans and the various Muslim factions, and then I think it's time that we look at maybe the northern border. And you actually put on the list the Scottish invasion of Ireland and also the English invasion of Ireland, both happening in the 1300s. And
Yes.
if you look at the Perry miniatures for the Irish, they look pretty wild, and they don't look that far out of place from like Age of Vikings, basically.
Yes, that's the benefit of being a small island in an area where actually not much happened during this time, and regular trade shipments were not so common. So foreign fashion were not a thing for the Irish. Yeah, I stumbled across these actually on my researches, these two events, like the Scottish invasion of Ireland and the English invasion of Ireland. And basically, man, that's wild. And I thought about which battle board you should use for the Irish there. I mean, the figures, yeah, they really look nearly like the Dark Age Irish, just with a little bit addition that they have like a tendency during this time to have their elite infantry being like with heavy weapons, these gallows glass warriors clad in chainmail and funny helm shapes. And basically, I came up like, okay, if we just use the pagan people battle board, rename, basically use the naming of the abilities from the Irish board, and just basically but use the functionality and the setup of the army and everything from the pagan people, we have a perfect Irish hit and run board for this time. You have this kind of like hiding in the woods, coming out in small units, harassing the enemy. This was exactly what drove the Scottish again out, and where also the English had huge issues. And I also thought about, you could use this board actually also to depict the Welsh rebellions in the late 1300s, because there were also Welsh uprisings in England, and they were also basically just guerrilla wars. And you could, if you want to depict this, you would basically use, instead of a lot of javelins, I would use a lot of bows for the pagan people board, basically, to depict that the Welsh basically brought the longbow on the world stage. And I would basically use, for the English, not the English board of Age of Chivalry, but I would use actually maybe the Crusader board in the Eastern variant, because during this time, during these revolts, the English actually learned that the longbow is pretty effective. Before, they were still going on with crossbows and knights and so on, and then they got their ass handed basically from the Welsh, and then they said like, oh, okay, these longbows are a thing, and then they implemented them into their army. Also quite an interesting period.
Yeah, so if you're interested in taking the pagan people / Welsh, or sorry, Irish route, I think there's a really good one, basically one for one type substitution in terms of models for the like the Perry miniatures. Like your warlord is like pretty easy to switch out and do whatever. You have
Yeah.
guys with javelins for your levies for the Irish, and then you have plenty of guys just with bows, which is perfect because you can have warriors with bows, which are very effective with the pagan people board.
Yeah,
And then maybe, oh, go ahead, yeah.
just a comment, and if you want to have cavalry, because the pagan people can have cavalry Hearthguard, you could mix in like one or two which have more like a westernized equipment. You can say basically these are the nobles which have been, so to say, on the other islands, yeah, and had good equipment. Or you actually, I looked it up, footsore Welsh, late Welsh, they have an own list, like an own list of miniatures there. These wouldn't look out of touch, even so they are an earlier period. So you could basically just scavenge earlier period miniatures from the Welsh or the Irish.
Yeah, and then I think probably something that people will definitely find very, very I guess interesting to do is using the Hearthguard pagan peoples. They are either mounted with javelins or they're on foot with heavy weapons, and that's a perfect stand-in for using the Gallo glass models, basically. So it's
Exactly.
like heavily armored guys on foot with pretty mean-looking double-handed weapons, and yeah, that's just like they're pretty effective with the pagan peoples. So you're not like hampering yourself or really
Yeah.
handicapping yourself by taking them, and it's just such a cool, fluffy, well-known unit as well to plug in and play that way.
And the Irish during this time like to dye their clothing quite yellow, quite a lot. So also this would look so amazing. These kind of shoeless wild guys, all in yellow, or in different shades of yellow, just coming out of the woods and murdering poor Scottish and English. Quite a look on the battlefield, I think.
So I think that's a super cool, like fluffy army you can take without any issues. And like what you said, the late Welsh from Footsore, like those models are really, really dynamic and amazing. And it's I think they slot in with their Barons War game.
Yes.
Not so much with the with what you can do with an Age of Vikings in Saga, but the models themselves are just incredibly cool looking. So it's a really good reason and excuse to buy those models from Footsore on the late Welsh side, because they have some, like just the commander, the mounted medieval commander from it just looks so incredibly badass.
Yeah.
It's like almost a shame, like you can't, yeah. It just looks really out of place in the Age of Vikings, unfortunately. So I think, oh shit, this is going to be an expensive episode for me, because I'm gonna.
Sorry.
Yeah. But all right, so that's that done. Maybe going back to the Age of Chivalry itself, we were messaging back and forth this week about. I was also looking at the Flemish battle board and trying to figure out what I want to do with that, and then I came to the realization that some of these battles that are kind of or the battle boards are modeled after, like the Battle of the Golden Spurs, actually occurred pretty early in the period. So Battle of the Golden Spurs, which is basically Flemish city militia defeating French knights.
As you do.
As you do, is on, I think it was the 1302 time period. So that's actually quite early in the whole period. And you were basically saying, yeah, that you could get away with some pretty early type miniatures, like that would not look out of place at all in the Age of Crusade. So for example, Barons War models from Footsore, those guys, you have like some relatively heavily armored warriors with tabards, with chainmail equipment, which you could easily change into like the Goedendags or the pikes, or basically long spears. Also, Wargames Atlantic helpfully also released several plastic model kits, which would be very, very useful for this period.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think they're... Sorry, go ahead.
And then there really the time warp starts to kick in the 1300s. Also, when you remember what I said with the battles, yeah. Actually, as soon as you basically accept that the two ages can mix, you basically can see that you are also can use Age of Chivalry battle boards to depict much earlier battles. Yeah. For example, if you want to depict just a German warband in the Crusades, in the early Crusades, and you don't want to use always the Crusader battle board, you can say, okay, now I'm using the German battle board for that, because these guys are just a German gang. just by leaving out stuff like barded horses and just stay with and the pavis stuff. Yeah, but you can still use the crossbows. You can still use normal warriors and normal veterans, and then you pick the miniatures out of the fitting time period. Yeah, so you still get a complete different play style with the same figures which you might have had before for the normal Crusaders.
Yeah, absolutely. And then basically you can just use them for so many different things, which is perfect.
Yeah.
Though triggers Hamza, probably. Sorry, Hamza.
Sorry, Hamza.
But yeah, we so I think that's kind of what we wanted to talk about. I mean, I think the possibilities are not endless, but plentiful for this time period. And I think just kind of like starting to think about it, starting to think about what you could do, get the hobby juices flowing, was definitely getting me very, very excited about all the different opportunities. I hope that people are also getting excited, maybe seeing what they can change in their Age of Crusades army, see what the options are. And I think we also forgot to mention that Victrix was also releasing their kind of like, I think more like 1200s type knight.
Oh yeah, they are nice, and the previews of the Muslimic faction is really nice. I like them a lot because they are a little bit more. They are not so much like the desert dwellers with the huge kaftans. They are having more like really pants on and so on, and I like them a lot. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about them, but they've been showing those renders for a while, but I haven't seen anything like a firm release date. But they do seem a little bit later in the time period as well, compared to maybe like the Gripping Beast or what. Yeah, I guess the Gripping Beast models look good, but nobody has any idea of like what time period they're supposed to depict.
Yeah, exactly. And if they come out with these new Muslim things, I could also imagine them being used for like kit bashing everything which is in the Mediterranean Sea a little bit. You could do
like Byzantines with the like that kind of stuff.
Or like you could, if you want to go totally crazy, also another idea for repurpose of battle boards. I don't know, but I don't know exactly now. But I would need to look at the battle board of the free companies. But basically, using the free company for depicting all kind of pirates. I already thought about that, using this for the stuff of Störtebeker, which was a famous in the 1300s, a famous pirate in the Baltic Sea, a German one. But you could actually think about using the same board for like pirates of the Mediterranean, like Muslim pirates, and then you basically use this with Muslim figures. This would be an interesting thought about.
Yeah, that's insane. This is getting expensive. I think we better wrap up this episode before things get out of control here. So that's thank you very much, Florian, for joining the activation phase again to impart your knowledge of this time period and basically help people get their hobby juices flowing and starting to think about these things. Thank you very much. It was very enjoyable. I hope people have been inspired and are getting hyped up. So thank you very much, and
you're welcome
to you all very soon. Thanks, Florian.
Have all a great day. Bye bye.